have to say that it's my pleasure to have you all on the stage with me today. So to start with the topic of the blueprints, I would love to start with the DCCE. Dr. Pirun, with Thailand's commitment to carbon neutrality and net zero, how the Department of Climate Change and Environment is shaping the policies such as we have heard about the Climate Change Act or carbon pricing mechanism, right? I would love you to ensure this transition act as a catalyst for economic growth rather than a cost. What is the update on this?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I would like to prefer to speak Thai, but because you told me to speak in English for the 99% of the audience who are Thai. I'm trying to communicate the best for, for the information to be useful to the audience. But let's think about this, in the new economy, new global economy, I think we need to shift our perspective from cost to economic opportunity and see the climate policy, especially the net zero, as the competitive strategy instead of just the climate goal, So I would like to refer to the findings by World Bank under Thailand Country Climate and Development Report. Thailand has to balance our high income ambition with the urgent need for climate resilience. So without stronger and fast adaptation, climate impacts such as droughts, floods, we saw in Hat Yai, and heat waves could reduce our GDP by 7% to 14% by 2050. But with low carbon transition through climate smart infrastructure investment, green energy or green exports, we could actually boost our economy by raising our GDP 4% to 5% by 2050. So I would say that Thailand positioned our climate policy and the Climate Change Act as a new growth engine, a fundamental rule book for strategic growth transformation. Having said that, the Climate Change Act is, establishing a clear, predictable, and long-term policy framework, not just for mitigation, but for adaptation and climate finance as well, to give confidence to investors, businesses, and financial institutions. So so when we look at the key policy instruments such as the carbon pricing mechanism, including carbon tax and emission trading system, they are being designed to consider economic competitiveness in mind. So if we want to use the carbon tax and the emission trading system to set the limit of the emission from the industry, we have to consider what benefits will Thailand gain from applying this mandatory rules, So we want to make a smooth transition, so we need to structure CPI and gradually and predictably internalize the cost of carbon and allowing a sufficient transition time for private sector and of course encouraging innovation, So we have to keep in mind that the global market is increasingly shaped by the international carbon border policies like EU CBAM that comes into effect in 2026, UK CBAM coming in 2027, and other jurisdictions are exploring the utilization of the same CBAM policies, including Canada, Australia, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and perhaps China as well. The reason that I said that because when I look at the ETS infrastructure in these countries, they are pretty much ready. They're just waiting for the government to kickstart. And whenever the CBAM is officially applying, CBAM has to come. Why? Because you have to prevent the carbon leakage. And of course, you have to ensure the level playing field. So by aligning, if we can align our carbon pricing and the emission reporting with the international standard, we can actually help exporters to reduce CBAM exposure, maintain market access, and also remain competitive instead of, facing penalties for high emissions.
Agree.
And apart from, reducing the CBAM exposure, or in other words, I would say creating future-proofing exports with the clear climate policy and legal framework, we can also help Thailand to attract more FDI, in energy efficiency, renewable energy, and, EV manufacturing and other as well, and that can accelerate the a transition to green economy. So in conclusion, I would say we need to shift our focus, from cost, economic burden to economic opportunity, increasing competitiveness. And we believe that Thailand Climate Policy and the Climate Change Act is the driver for new industries, jobs, and export opportunities. And because, every country, including Thailand, we want to see sustainable economic growth in the future. But what we have to do is to build a resilient economy that is ready to compete in the 21st centuries with the quickly changing trade rules and investment in the global market. And that would be the answer for the first question.
Wow, that's interesting. Just like Dr. Pirun said, that we have to shift our mindset from looking all the things that we need to do for the green economy as a burden to be seen as like a good opportunity for our country. So in order to learn from other countries, today we have our partners. A lot of partners come here to share with us, including Mr. Ishiro. I would love to ask you, as Japan has been a global leader in decarbonization strategy, and from your experience, how Japan successfully integrated green innovation into its core national strategy, and what lesson that Thailand or other country could learn from you?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this very important event. Yes, I would like to speak a little bit about the Japanese government strategies. And the key point in the government Japan's approach is not pursuing a sudden, uniform regulatory push, but advancing a realistic transition that ensures investment predictability so that industry can plan and move in orderly way. The comprehensive framework for this approach is Green Transformation, GX 2040 vision formulated last year. The GX 2040 vision does not aim at decarbonization alone. Its basic policy is the simultaneous realization of energy security, economic growth, and decarbonization. One pillar to achieve this goal is the phased manner of implementation of carbon pricing. In Japan, we will introduce carbon pricing system under a step-by-step approach, combining an emission trading systems, ETS, with fuel-related charges. From 2026, we will shift to a mandatory ETS, requiring entities above a certain scale of emissions to measure, manage, and report their emissions. from 2028, we will introduce a GX surcharge on fossil fuels. And from 2033 onward, we will gradually move to paid allocation, auctions of allowance in the power sector. So what matter here is not only what we introduce, but how we introduce. We will pair these measures with steps to prevent sharp price fluctuations so that the companies can form long-term cost expectations and proceed with planned manner of capital investment and technological shifts. This approach is especially important for heavy industries such as steel, chemicals, pulp, paper, and cement. While immediate decarbonization is technologically and economically difficult, these sectors remain indispensable for supporting digitalization, infrastructure, disaster resilience, and the energy transition. Japan will maintain domestic production capacity while supporting a long-term realistic transition aligned with technology maturity. In order to do this, we are advancing the enabling conditions in parallel. On the energy side, we will accelerate renewables, the use of nuclear power with safety as the top priority, and the introduction of low-carbon energies such as hydrogen and ammonia. On the investment side, we will mobilize GX Economy Transition Bonds, the world's first sovereign transition bonds, and other financial tools to back investments and social implementations in areas that are difficult for the private sectors alone to monetize, such as electrification of high-temperature processes, CO2 capture and utilization, CCUS. In addition, to ensure low-carbon products and services are appropriate value, we will foster market formation through public and private procurement also. In Thailand, a mandatory ETS is also envisioned, and decarbonization of industries is progressing on timeline very close to Japan's one. Japan's approach combines creating regulatory framework with providing supporting measures. The publication of a government vision, GX 2040 vision, financing via GX economy transition bonds, and sector-specific investment strategies, including for heavy industries, making a realistic transition feasible. As a government-affiliated organization, JETRO, Bangkok, will work with ASEAN partners under the framework of Asia Zero Emission Communities, AZEC, helping create in Japan, Thailand, and other collaboration projects that advance technology development and social implementation in renewables, next generation fuels, CCS, and energy efficiency, enabling Asian countries that rely heavily on fossil fuels to maintain economic growth while moving toward decarbonization in stages. So to summarize, Japan will combine the phased manner of carbon pricing, GX economy transition bonds to support innovation and investment, and the fine-grained sector-specific promotion measures. So with this package, we will maintain the competitiveness of heavy industries while advancing a practical industrial transitions. And through institutional coordination and supply chain cooperation with Thailand, we aim to contribute to the sustained growth of both countries.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for sharing with us your good example that you have been done with Japan, and we think that we can learn a lot from your implementation. Talking about the ASEAN, today we have a very good partner from ASCOP as well. I would love to ask Ms. Divai, from an ASEAN perspective, how do you see the regional energy landscape evolving in the past? Specifically, how can we turn all the challenge that we have talked a lot about, like high emission in the energy sector, into a regional economic opportunity through shared infrastructure and technology that we have right now?
Thank you. So first thing, really appreciate for having me to be invited here, and I congrats to PTT that already arranging this big event. The Sparking for the Future is preparing for the future business to be more green and more can be accepted to the market. So today I'm Dewi Mercy representing Pertamina and also the ASCOP member. We'll walk through the portfolio of the CCS that we've been developed at the same time that we are currently keep going with our current existing business. So in our Pertamina strategy is anchored in a dual growth. We are maintaining, sorry. Okay, sorry. So we are maintaining national energy security and business competitiveness by maximizing our legacy in the upstream, downstream, and also transforming the fuel and also retail. And we increase the portion of renewable in our energy mix by building low carbon business. We are increased the capacity in the solar PV, geothermal. We have launched the sustainable aviation fuel and already used by our airline, Pelita. And then we also join program with Toyota to produce a green hydrogen by maximizing the potential in our geothermal and the hydrogen will be used for the Toyota fuel cell car. And we also produce the biodiesel that currently available in the market. And at the same time, we performing the climate policy objective in developing CCS US. And the initiative is to carbonize the major volume of CO2 being released from our facility and also to support other industry sectors. Actually, like many other East Asian economies, we face three pressure: geopolitical volatility, energy mix transition, and accelerating climate policy, including the net zero commitment. And as you can see in here, we are performing to develop the multi integration between the Pertamina and also other entity in the group and also other cross industry sector to be able to decarbonize in a major volume and also we are developing the Asian framework to decarbonize that we expect by having multi emitters and cross border, it will be able to reduce the cost rather than develop it country by country. And you can see that we have a shared CCS hub and transport corridors by developing the regional hub that will integrate and aggregate the CO2 coming from domestic and also from any outside of the countries. And then the one that we need is to harmonize the cross-border CCS framework and also the technology and investment sharing between the country and any others to be able to develop the project to accelerate this decarbonization initiative. And in here, you can see the major development of CCS in Pertamina. So we assign 3 areas to be hub because we see that we have an appropriate potential storage for the CO2 to be injected in the subsurface, and it also having currently the availability for the shipping transport and also the co-sharing facility for the surface facility. So by doing this, we expect that by maximizing the facility we have, it might be able to optimize the cost compared to the one that we calculate to completely develop all the system from the beginning into the complete one. So this is my aim. And the other one, we have also several fields that to be assigned as an integrated CCS domestic cluster beside decarbonized CCS CO2 injection from Pertamina. It also will support the other industry sector within the area. And I think for the quick answer for you, currently Pertamina is not just focusing on the decarbonize for the CO2 from the Pertamina itself, but also to integrate with other industry sector and also to support the other regional countries in East Asia. And we currently already having the regulation that distinguishing between the CCS and CCUS, and we expect that by having this, the next implementation will be going in a better way. Thank you.
Wow, that's very inspiring for us. Thank you for sharing. Okay. All in all, we have to say that we have seen the opportunity in this to go to the greener economy. But I have to ask this for BCG, Mr. Macro, as a global strategic advisor, why is it critical for all businesses to move beyond the compliance and see decarbonization as a driver for long-term competitiveness and business resilience at this time?
No, thanks a lot for the question, and thanks a lot for PTT for selecting this important topic and inviting us to be the panelist here. And I feel that all the panelists actually agree that the green economy is here to stay. And basically, if you check the trends, even the trends confirm that the green economy is one of the fastest growing industries, I mean, next to digital, which is great, and about $5 trillion has been invested so far, and we expect that $7 trillion will be invested still till 2030 on the global level. So definitely this is something what is here to stay. Of course, and we mentioned this already, that the mitigation is basically the main driver here, but adaptation is actually catching ground and becoming more and more important. However, if we try to de-average a little bit what is happening behind these curves of the investments and the growth, you will actually see a pretty complex canvas of different technologies. More than half of them are currently in the money, as we like to say. So basically, they are economically viable, while the rest are actually catching ground. And the development of the technology and the dropping costs are definitely one of the drivers. However, the other drivers which are actually important are the markets. We basically talked a lot about the Thai market and how the Thai market will evolve, and the Japanese market and how it will evolve. And basically this actually brought the companies to the situation that the green revenues are becoming the generator of growth, which is important and are growing actually twice as fast as the other revenues. However, the part which is often kind of overlooked is that apart from the equipment which is being used, apart from the solutions, there is the whole ecosystem of the things which are all the way in the upstream, like the critical minerals, like the green steel, so basically green manufacturing, which are also important driver for the creation of the value in the economies itself. And we also saw that it's an important macroeconomic and geopolitical driver as well. But what is needed in order for the decarbonization actually to survive? Basically, three things that we see. The first thing is the price premium. People need to be ready to pay more at this point of time for the green and for the green premium. Of course, you can always say, I will manufacture cheaper, I will do it cheaper, this is all great. But basically, the green premium needs to be here as well, and we need to recognize that. So this is the first driver, and this is something which is quite important. The second one, which is quite important, is the cost of financing. So what we see is that companies which have a significant share of the green economy embedded in the core operations are basically getting a cheaper investment. And this can be driven by a couple of reasons. So the first one is basically the growth is quicker, the valuations are higher, but also the lenders are willing to invest more and cheaper in the green economies or the green solutions itself. And basically this is a huge motivator, and sometimes in the capex intense industries, so Budevi actually spoke about CCS, this is critical because you need a lot of investments for something like that. And the last one, which is actually becoming more and more important, are the risk premiums. So we are seeing actually the global economy, which is becoming very sensitive to the flow of materials, to the flow of services. And basically what the countries are doing is they're looking at the energy independence. And we mentioned that at the very beginning. And the whole green infrastructure is something which is quite important for the energy independence as well, because it's a decentralized, it's a distributed system, but it's a system which can be confined within a country, especially if you have manufacturing of that equipment as well. And this is something what has been a Chinese idea for the decades now, but what the countries in Southeast Asia are also starting to employ and basically expand into the upstream and create additional value through the manufacturing of the equipment itself. So in a way, what we actually see for the green economy to survive and to thrive is basically the ecosystem. All of these elements need to be in place. So there is no magic solution, but what we also see is a huge momentum. So a lot of money is being invested, a lot of companies are basically growing, there is profit margin which is healthy, a lot of lenders are very open to continue to invest, and we are quite positive about the whole trend.
Wow. That's interesting. Thank you for confirming us that go greener is also economically viable as well. So if we talk about the action path, we have to come back to Dr. Pirun once again, because we have to see how that Thailand can achieve the decarbonization economically. I have to say like this in terms of the concrete action. How does the government can enhance the collaboration with the private sectors through carbon price mechanism that you just mentioned, or financial incentive to accelerate the transition to the low carbon economy?
Well, following the first question, when I said that we have to shift our perspective to see climate policy, especially net zero 2050, as the economic opportunity, but it's still a challenge. It's a challenge for not only for Thailand but for any other nations as well. So, but when we look within the region, the ASEAN region, Thailand is not the first country to announce net zero in 2050. Actually, we are the seventh, following Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Laos, even Cambodia, But of course, when introducing new instruments like carbon pricing, we need to make sure that our private sector are ready. That's why we emphasize the importance of private sector engagement at the beginning of the drafting process of the Climate Change Act. So we include the representatives from the private sector as the member of the Subnational Committee on Climate Legislation and also the National Committee on Climate Change Policy, which is chaired by the Prime Minister himself. And basically, I would say that private sector is working hand in hand with the government throughout the drafting process of the Climate Change Act, including also the design of the carbon pricing instruments. But beyond that, my department has set up a task force, including representatives from the private sector, to work on the detailed design of the subsidiary laws and regulations of the CPIs. This is to make sure that whenever we implement the CPI, it is workable, and we would be able to phasing them in responsibly, because we have to consider as well the economic impact when we start using the carbon pricing instruments like carbon tax and emission trading system. But of course, how we attenuate such an impact, because sooner or later, voluntary is not going to lead us to achieving the net zero target, and we may not be able to compete with the changing rules of global trade and investment. So we will make sure that whenever we apply the carbon tax and emission trading system, they will be paired with financial incentives, like on the screen, the climate fund, concessional finance, sustainability linked bond or green bonds by commercial banks or even by the Ministry of Finance itself, and the tax incentives from BOI for sure, voluntary carbon credits, and of course the Thailand CBAM. Because whenever we apply carbon price to our products, or even to control the entities to set the limit of greenhouse gas emission, we need to be able to make sure that we protect our industries, by applying the Thailand CBAM as well. So with the, I would say, customized and optimized financial incentives or financial supporting measures together with the CPI, we can stimulate a quicker transition in innovation and climate-related investment like renewable energy, energy efficiency, EV manufacturing, low-carbon industries, and of course, very much important to say is the climate resilient infrastructures. So I want to ensure all of you here today, and most of you are from private sectors, that the government will work closely with you, in designing the CPI and how to utilize it effectively, considering the competitiveness and economic burden. And as I said before, I think with the CPI, we can reduce the, CBAM exposure. It's already being enforced, and who knows, more products in the pipeline, and whenever it comes into effect, for example, like glass, ceramic, petrochemicals, refinery products, and so on and so forth. So if we can reduce the CBAM exposure, we can increase the competitiveness in exporting to the global market. And at the same time, how to attract more foreign direct investment, because we have to admit that there are so many big companies, seeking for climate stable and aligned supply chain. And Thailand could be the leading country for that, because you see the changing rule, people are seeing for more sustainable business, and I would like to position Thailand in this pathway, and that is the rules for the competition in trading and investment, as I said, in the 21st century.
Wow, can't wait to see that great picture happen between the collaboration from the Thai government and also the Thai private sector. Moving on to the collaboration between nations, I would love to ask Mr. Ichiro, looking at your green transformation or GX strategy that you just mentioned before, what practical step that should Thai and Japanese businesses take together to build the sustainable supply chains that meet global decarbonization standards?
Yes, thank you. So in that context, I would like to talk about a little bit about promotion of business partnership between Thailand and Japan. And firstly, I'd like to talk about the startups policy in Japan, and then what JETRO is doing to promote a business partnership. So first, Japan is focusing on promoting startups from the perspective of fostering innovation. In 2022, the Japanese government formulated a 5-year startup plan aiming to increase the number of Japan-born unicorns through intensive support for financing or accelerations. The key concepts include deep tech, which seeks to develop and implement next-generation technologies, and go global, which targets global market from the outset to scale up. In fields such as decarbonization and resource circulations, startups are emerging that combine digital technologies to provide services for visualizing and reducing carbon emissions, as well as developing innovative technologies. Thailand is, of course, one of the important countries where both the public and private sectors are actively engaged in climate change initiatives. By leveraging the technology of Japanese startups to drive Thailand's green transformation, we see significant potential for new cooperation between Thai and Japan, win-win relationship. So as the slide shows, JETRO is advancing 3 major initiatives: business matching through participation in exhibition and organizing business meetings. This is number 1. Number 2 is building partnership that involve both public and private sectors in Thailand and Japan. And thirdly, providing information on promising companies in both countries through catalogs and other means. So JETRO has so far set up booths at major exhibitions such as Texas and others, supporting Japanese companies and other companies, including startups, in exhibiting at JETRO's booth, while also facilitating matching with Thai companies. Through these efforts, we have expanded the business networks between Thai and Japan companies. In addition, through hosting various seminars and symposiums, including sustainable seminars, we are providing information to private sectors and promote a collaboration between both between Japan and Thai, and between the government and the private sectors. And furthermore, we create catalogs introducing Japanese companies with cutting-edge technologies, not limited to startups, and widely disseminate those in Thailand. At the same time, through interviews with major Thai companies, we share their areas of interest and expectations for Japanese companies broadly within Japan. Through these initiatives, various examples of collaboration between Thai and Japanese companies have emerged. Japan's Zero Board has partnered with Thailand's Rojana to provide carbon emission visualization services for the manufacturing sector. Thailand's T-Smart has teamed up with Japan's Taisei Corporation to promote energy efficiency and smart building solutions. Japan's TBM has collaborated with Thailand's BJC to popularize the recycled shopping basket. Japan's Samalytica has partnered with Thailand's CP to strongly advance energy-saving measures in poultry facilities. And this way, cutting-edge technologies from Japanese startups are driving decarbonization and resource circulation across a wide range of sectors in Thailand, of course, in Japan. Together with this comprehensive initiative of the Asia Zero Emission Communities introduced in Round 1, we would like to build a new cooperative relationship between Thailand and Japan by promoting collaboration centered on green technologies for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the support that JETRO has been done with all the Thai business, since from the startup and also like medium to large business that you have been collaborating. Moving on to the real use case from Patamina, Ms. DY, I would love to ask you, based on your work experience with Patamina and as a S-Corp, could you please share with us the practical blueprints as same as the title of our session today. We would love to know what is the blueprints that making CCUS commercially viable that you just mentioned, and especially it must be scalable within the Southeast Asia region as well, right? How can you do that?
Okay, thank you for the question. So basically, as you see on the slide, we are doing a very detailed evaluation on the storage that being appointed as the CO2 injection reservoir candidate. We're doing the comprehensive and thorough to find the most appropriate reservoir that having the minimum depth, the good permeability, having a seal and caprock integrity, having a multiple seal availability, the maximum pressure that fit into the requirement number of legacy well that potentially making the a breakthrough impact and risk, and also the plumb movement evaluation and many other detail evaluation. Basically, all those evaluation is the aim is to de-risking of the project implementation of the CCUS, because in here we aim to store the CO2 permanently, and we expect that won't be any leakage. So the CO2 that being stored can be recognized as the carbon credit later on. So that carbon credit is the one that will be agreed to be shared, that required a G2G bilateral agreement for sure. So in cross-border concern highlight in regional studies, the permanence and leakage accounting cross-border is become one of the issues. And then MRV responsibility split between the capture country, the storage country, and then the long-term liability transfer from one area to the other area that crossing to the border, and also aligning into the international standard. So basically, we are taking the best effort to fit into the international standard to be able to minimum any potential risk, and we can mitigate by designing what would be the next operation design when we really implemented this CCS project. And for the next, if you can see in the design of the CCS pathway for the Asian, we see that CCS is evolving into a regional low carbon business with the multi-emitters model for domestic cross-industry sectors integration and CO2 cross-border, and Pertamina will serve as storage and transport hub leader. And our key actually, Asian should establish the common cross-border CCS framework for MRV, and then emission reduction recognition and liability allocation. The government should also enable cross-border CO2 transport and storage, because in East Asia, every single country having its own policy and regulation. It doesn't have to be same regulation and policy. It doesn't have to be a uniformity, but it has to be mentioned what will be the rule into this cross-border, the transport and storage, and also the requirement that has to be fulfilled, including the import regulation, because it will be crossing the border. And then CCS should be embedded in the ASEAN decarbonization and financing framework as a cost-effective regional solution. CCS allow ASEAN to turn high aviation into a shared economic and decarbonization opportunity. So in the cross-border perspective, regional hub and of the CO2, CCS CO2 cross-border has to address bilateral agreement from one country to the other country. And in that case, it has to cover the right to emission reduction, the regulatory jurisdiction of during the transport, and then long-term storage stewardship, carbon accounting and emission reduction ownership, and then fiscal incentive and carbon market linkage. So CCS and CCS is strategic regional infrastructure for East Asia decarbonization. The technology is largely ready, but the remaining is still challenged, specifically in the policy alignment, the commercial risk allocation across the borders. So for Pertamina side, and also that will give a big support to the East Asian countries, and we expect that CCS will strengthen the energy security today, while positioning Asian to be a trusted, a long-term CO2 partner for the next decarbonization program globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good beginning idea and execution plan that you share with us. Last but not least, as our session is the blueprint for all companies that would love to drafting for to go for greener economy, I would love to ask Mr. Macro for final questions. How do you recommend all the company to balance and balance the trade-off between like the immediate capital expenditure that they have to invest right now and the long-term economic gain of sustainability that you just mentioned before, that is a must that you all of us need to catch this opportunity?
I think this is one of the first questions that we have ever received when we started talking about the green economy, and this is how do you actually balance the investment today versus building the position and economic impact for the future as well. So let me start one step back, and this is the investments which are needed. And these investments are huge. And basically, these are not the investments which are just on the paper. These are the investments which are needed to reach the net zero, which we are talking about here as well. So the question is how to make this viable for the companies actually, or how to attract the companies to participate and fill in this gap, because we are talking about 37 trillion US dollars by 2030, and there is about 9 or 10 trillion US dollars of a gap which needs to be filled in by the private sector. So there are kind of three different mutually complementary steps which need to be taken by the, or which we see that the companies are taking, which are successful in monetizing the green investments. So the first one is definitely the sequencing of the investments themselves, starting from the technologies which are currently in the money. And if you remember the first slide which I have shown, a lot of technologies are in the money at this point of time. This will be more than half of the different levers which we need to pull in order to abate or in order to decarbonize the situation compared to the baseline. Energy efficiency, electrification are some of the examples. The second important element is for all the technologies which are borderline in the money or not in the money, and CCS is the one which is probably prime example here. We actually need to partner. So this is something where a single company will have difficulty to fully monetize this type of technology and have a positive business case. And the third one is actually how do we shift these investments from a single sourced capex to the shared capex, as we call it. And there are multiple strategies actually in order to do this. So one of them is basically to collaborate together with the government, which needs to ensure the policy stability. We heard quite a bit about it. With the other companies, cross-border collaboration, use of the blended financing from different sources like MDBs, like sovereign funds, private capital. So basically all of these levers should be pulled. So basically in a way, the the main question is how do we de-risk and how do we send a signal to the companies that, that these investments will actually pay off. And we singled out a couple of examples how this currently looks like in Southeast Asia, and Budevi actually spoke about some of these quite a bit. So the first one is related to the public-private partnerships and the shared infrastructure, like for example green hydrogen infrastructure like the CCS, where the role of the government is basically to ensure the environment through the carbon tax, through the tax incentives, import of the equipment, for example, which will help the private sector or the state-owned enterprises to invest. The second element or the second example could be, for example, the S-Hub in Singapore, which is also collaboration of different oil and gas players, which are basically trying to mobilize the broader Southeast Asian environment when it comes to the CCS as well. And we actually see this as a positive nudge, as a positive push. The second important element are the G2G frameworks. We actually heard quite a bit about the CO2 and the cross-border collaboration when it comes to the CO2, and I will not repeat all of that. And NGI is one of the attempts actually to standardize the approach to the CO2 to basically define how does the stakeholder landscape look like, how do we unify different regulations here, accountability when it comes to the leakages, different accreditation and different matching to the international standards. So in a way, these investments are not a question for a single companies themselves, but for the whole ecosystem and again for the whole collaboration. And here ASEAN itself and the collaboration between the ASEAN countries will have a huge impact, and that's why we are very positive and basically very excited about Thailand's role as well in taking huge steps here to be part of this collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you for the clear picture that emphasizes us. We need to collaborate much more on this for going greener and also like to prepare for the opportunity that you just mentioned that it's huge, right, from now on. So if we would not love to like miss this trend of the opportunity, we have to help each other, especially in the ASEAN market. We have a big opportunity for this. And thank you very much for very insightful information from all of the distinguished speakers. Please give a big round of applause to our speakers. ขอบคุณมากๆค่ะ And next, please remain on the stage to take the group photo first in the front. Before we go into the next session, I have to thank you once again for all the distinguished speakers to share with us all the insightful information about the blueprint, to let us know how to set up the way and implementation plan to go greener together. We're gonna have one more video shot on this. Please keep smiling. Thank you very much ขอเสียงปรบมือดังๆอีกครั้งให้กับ speakers ของเรานะคะ Thank you very much for all insightful information. And for the first session, I have to say that all Thailand, Japan, and Pertamina are strategically aligning their industrial and regulatory framework to accelerate the transition toward the net zero and energy security through mechanisms like carbon pricing, GX 2040, CCS initiative that Mr. Devai just mentioned to us. I have to say that these players are transforming decarbonization into a multi-trillion-dollar growth opportunity, like Mr. Macro just mentioned to us. So we have to say that success in this green economy depends on bold ambition, cross-border collaboration, and navigating the evolving landscape of technology and finance together. So this is the conclusion of the blueprint session that I believe that is very benefit to all of us that would love to create our own blueprint to go to greener economy. And our next session is equally compelling as we turn our focus to the outstanding topic, the balance. Future of energy cleaner but yet secure. In this discussion, we're going to take you to explore key perspective and strategy for driving a balanced energy transition that advance cleaner energy solutions while ensuring long-term energy security for the country. Let's begin with the representative from governmental agency, state enterprise, and private sector in energy businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, please give me a big round of applause to our distinguished speakers. First, คุณวัฒนพงศ์คุโรวาท Secretary General of the Energy Policy and Planning Office or EPO Ministry of Energy. Next, คุณรัฐกร กัมปนาท แสนยากร Senior Executive Vice President Corporate Sustainability of PTT Public Company Limited. And next, คุณสิริวัฒน์ เจ็ดศรี Deputy Governor Power Plant Development and Renewable Energy of Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand. And last but not least, Mr. Joshua Ngu, Research Vice Chairman Asia Pacific of Wood Mackenzie. Sawadee ka and good afternoon to all of you. It's my honor to have you all on the stage. To start with how to balance clean energy with the security first, I would love to ask Apple first on this. What is the Apple approach to balancing this one, to both clean energy ambition with the energy security in Thailand transition its energy system?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to share about the balance and clean energy with the security. Actually, I will, in the term of the policy maker, before I answer these questions, balance, let me step back. There are four forces or driving factors that are shaping the energy now. The first one, we know that right now we have a very extreme weather. We call the climate shock. The climate shock come into the form of like the flooding, heat wave, and maybe some kind of the critical crisis to environment. So it can harmful to the electricity generation to the people. The second one is the price. Price now is volatility. It doesn't mean that the high price, but it means that the price is volatile. That means they have some directly impact to the energy bills and to the business and to the Thai people. Another one is the geopolitical risk and the supply chain. You can see now many of the clean technology now, we rely on the supply chains like the EV, like the battery. The critical material is very important. When there are some conflict for the geopolitical risk, there affect to our electricity bill, for example. And another one we have to concern is about the demand. Right now there's a new demand with the more demand with the different pattern from the EVs and from the data center. That is for a factor that work together. Then in terms of the policy maker, we have